In my last video, I went over my experience with transferring from community college to the University of Michigan, and I really wanted to do a deep dive into my experience at community college because there was a lot more to say about that, and this might be a little bit more useful to people who have no interest in going to Michigan but are thinking about going to community college. So these are just some things that I wish I knew before I went to community college. For some context, I did pretty well in high school. I had a pretty high GPA and I thought I would get a full ride to whatever in-state school I applied to, but my SAT score just did not get me there. I took it 3 times and I was still 30 points away from getting a full ride. So I didn't want to put a penny towards a school that I was not really passionate about, and this is when I decided that I was just going to pursue community college to take a year basically to really decide where I wanted to go. And I thought this was a good option for me because of the STARS program. I don't know if this is universal across all 50 states, but at least in New Jersey there's this program called the STARS program, and if you graduate in the top 10% of your high school class, then you get to go to community college for free. And if you keep up your GPA at community college, then you get to transfer to in-state schools that are part of the program for a reduced tuition. I wasn't really interested in that route because I had already decided that I wasn't really too excited about any of the in-state options and that I really wanted to go to Michigan. But the first half of the program was really useful to me, to go to community college for free, so I'd have a year to decide where I really wanted to go. When you're a part of the STARS program, you don't go 100% for free. You still have to pay for your books and some random fees, but I don't think I spent more than $200 on all of those supplies and books. If anything, $200 sounds like a lot. I believe the fees came from my art classes that definitely cost a little bit more than average notebooks and pencils. So my first takeaway was to not follow their recommended class schedule. From the beginning, I didn't really plan to get my associates there. I kind of knew that I was going to community college just to build up as many transferable credits as possible and to save some money. So when I was building my class schedule, I wasn't really planning on following it to a T to get my associates, but I still used it as a guideline to help me understand what the basic classes were, what average first year classes looked like, to help me get on the right path. So my first takeaway here was to not follow their recommended class schedule, because I quickly realized that if I did that, I wasn't going to get an associate's in 2 years. And even though that wasn't my plan, I still wanted to graduate within 4 years, so I decided to take more classes than they recommended. And the guidance counselor that was going around the room, overseeing our decisions and there to answer any questions, looked at me like I was crazy for signing up for 6 classes, I believe it was. And I think this is really important to emphasize and stress, that if you follow their recommended guides, you're not going to graduate in time. You're not going to get your associates in 2 years, and you're probably not going to graduate college in 4 years. So if you want to graduate within those timelines, then you have to take more credits than what they are recommending. It wasn't only the counselor there that looked at me like I was crazy for doing this. When I went into the library to find the books for my classes, I showed someone my schedule and they were like, "You're taking that many classes?" Like I had no idea what I was in for, but I quickly realized that this was super manageable. And I even had a job at the time where I ended up working 30-hour weeks, sometimes almost 40 hours. I was able to do that because I made my schedule so that I would have Thursdays and Fridays off, or I'd have the evenings of Tuesday, Wednesday off. So I also have the perspective of needing to work and do the schoolwork at the same time. I was definitely sometimes doing homework at work or staying up late to meet some deadlines, but as someone who had been successful in high school, I knew how to stay on top of my schoolwork and push myself through hard deadlines because it was all just temporary. The reward of good grades and hopefully transferring to my dream school would be worth it. But overall, I felt the classes weren't too difficult. I'd say that a lot of the professors just rewarded you for participating, for doing the bare minimum was enough to get an A. In my Western Civilization class, I studied for the final, and when I took the final, There were so many things that I was unfamiliar with, and I was like, did we go over this in class? And I still managed to get an A in that class. I don't really understand how that one worked out, but I think I always proved myself in that class as someone who did the homework, did the reading, was willing to participate, and that gave me some extra points. I don't know. That class is still a mystery to me. Even though the academic classes were easier than I was used to in my AP and honors classes in high school, the art classes were pretty difficult. Difficult because you had to put in long hours. The thing about painting and drawing and ceramics, which are the classes that I was taking at the time, is that it's not enough to just have the skill to do these things, but it's about having the patience. The patience to do tiny little strokes over and over again, or get the lighting completely right by going under the darks and then the lights and then back and forth to get it perfect. These things take time and you can't rush them. So those art classes were as challenging as any class I had ever taken, honors high school or at my future art and design school at the University of Michigan. An encouraging takeaway from this experience was realizing that a lot of the professors at the community college were actually professors of nearby universities. So we had professors from Rutgers and NYU and the New School in New York, which basically means that you're getting the education of one of these bigger schools, but for a fraction of the price. And I know this was definitely true in Ann Arbor as well, because when I was looking up the professors for the classes that I was going to take, I saw some of the professors' names on Rate My Professor for the nearby community college in Ann Arbor, meaning that they also taught there. So the tuition I was paying at Michigan, I could get a similar experience at the nearby community college. So do with that information what you may. Speaking of Rate My Professor, I cannot recommend enough using that site when building your schedule, because ultimately you're going to school to learn, and there are some professors that just put you to sleep or are mean for kind of no reason or just really hard. And if you're already taking a lot of hard classes and you just need to fulfill a requirement and you want to do it as easily as possible, then you could go for an easier professor so you can focus on the classes that are actually going to help you with your future career. You just gotta be a little strategic with your choices, you know? There were some professors that were not highly recommended for graphic design because of how tough they were, but they were an extremely skilled graphic designer, so you take those classes not for an easy A, but for the invaluable learning experience. I'd say overall the art classes at community college are pretty top-notch. A lot of people take community college art classes as a hobby, so there are some serious artists, there are some serious dancers. So classes like these, I actually intend to one day return to them. One of the classes that I'm most thankful for taking at community college was actually my ballet class. We got to learn the fundamentals of ballet and the history, and it was basically an exercise class that I got college credit for. I don't remember if this necessarily transferred, but it was a really fun activity. As someone who grew up dancing, it was not too beginner to not have fun in, and I still found it very valuable to go back to the basics. In regards to making friends at community college, this is a little bit more difficult because you're not traditionally living on campus at community college. It's a commuter school where everyone drives there, goes to class, and leaves. I had a few friends from high school that were also going there, and so we met up at least once a week to have lunch and just catch up, and I'm so grateful for that time that I had with them. It made me look forward to going to campus, and it was encouraging to have people who were going through a similar situation as me, which is fighting very hard to be able to graduate in time, to be able to transfer to the school that they want to, and to also balance work outside of school. I was also able to make some friends during this time through my classes, especially in the art classes. When you're working on your ceramics or your painting, this is a great time to talk to those around you. So through this, I was able to make some really great friends. So there still are opportunities to create friendships. Community college is also a great way to see friends that went to different high schools than you but were in the same county. So I was able to have classes with my cousin and a few of my old friends for the first time ever, which was such a fun experience. Truly, one of the biggest takeaways from this experience was that community college does not effectively communicate the struggle of transferring. If you follow the recommended class schedule, you will not graduate with an associate's in 2 years. A lot of people go to community college to save money, and that is a possibility, but not if you spread out the classes over 3 or 4 years and then have to transfer to another university to finish your bachelor's. By the time that you do this, you could be in college for 6 years, sometimes 8. In the end, spreading out your class schedule over 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years will not actually help you save money. Sure, your payments may be spread out if you're paying out of pocket up front. If you're taking out student loans, you're gonna want to graduate in a shorter time frame. Also, if you take all of their recommended classes to fulfilling their requirements to get an associate, not all of those classes may transfer to the college that you will be getting your bachelor's at. So it may not be in your best interest to complete the associates before transferring. This is why I really encourage seeing if the college that you want to transfer to has a website where you can look at the classes you're taking currently and see if those will transfer. If not, what are you doing in them? Do not waste your time in them unless there's something that are of interest to you personally. Like if a ceramics class isn't going to help you graduate, but it's an activity that you've always wanted to try and it fits in your schedule, then totally go for that. Listen. I just don't want you to take a history class that you don't even like, only to realize that it's not going to transfer to your 4-year school, and that you spent money, time, energy on that class for basically nothing. If your 4-year school doesn't offer a site like that, you could probably reach out to a counselor at that school or some other decision maker, because ultimately someone's going to have to decide if those credits transfer. So get in front of that person and get approval for the classes that you're taking. So this isn't a lesson learned from community college, but it's a lesson that I learned while at community college. Let me explain. I share this during my transfer video, but because I feel that it is so important, I'm going to share it now too. When I got into my 4-year school, the University of Michigan, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to go there until I knew how much aid I was going to get. And when I found out that a lot of my tuition would be covered by grants because my school had a huge endowment, I wanted to share this information with everyone, and information that I felt like wasn't too widely known. So I felt inclined to share this news with as many people as possible. You want to go to these big schools not only for their name recognition or the programs that they have, but a lot of them have huge endowments. You can look up some of the universities that have the greatest endowments, and they will have bigger budgets to get students into the school for a more reasonable tuition cost. I shared this information with one of my friends who was the most talented artist I have ever encountered. I basically told him, you are so talented, you can go to whatever art school you want to, because they will see how passionate you are and want you at their school, and they will pay for you to go. I was basically making him a promise, because I felt like if I could get the money, then this super talented person could get the money for sure. And a year later, he randomly calls me up, and I almost thought it was a mistake on his end because we hadn't communicated since, and he thanked me. He went on to get a full ride at the School of Art Institute in Chicago, and he was so appreciative that I had given him the encouragement to look up programs that he thought would have been out of his reach. And that was encouraging to me too, because yeah, I had my personal experience of getting a lot of aid, but here was another great example of when someone's really passionate about a program and money is a barrier. A lot of schools want really talented people to go there, so they will make it happen. And I'm not saying I'm really talented, I'm just saying that you have to find the right schools that have the money to give out. The final lesson wasn't learned while at community college, but after, and I spoke about this in my transfer video, but I wanted to mention it here as well. Imposter syndrome definitely followed me when I transferred, because I felt like I only got in because I was a transfer, that the acceptance rate is higher for transfer students, and so I felt like I had a lot to prove. But after repeatedly doing well in my classes, I realized that I got in for a reason, and I want to share that encouragement with you. If you get into a four-year school, there is a reason you got in. You deserve to be there. Sure, I encourage proving yourself, but you belong there. So I just want to emphasize one more time to be on top of this process yourself. Don't just follow what is recommended by the school. Do what you think you are capable of. You can probably handle more classes than what they are recommending, and I definitely recommend doing that if you want to graduate college in 4 years. I also just want to say there's nothing wrong with not graduating in 4 years and taking your time with college. But I don't think enough people realize that if they just follow the recommended class schedule from community college or take an easy course load basically at any point, that they will not meet the requirements in 4 years. They might feel like they could take one easy semester because they have 3 years ahead of them, but really you have to be on top of every single semester in order to fulfill the requirements over a 4-year span. And 4 years really flies by. I just want you to save money if that's what you're trying to do. Community college is a really great way to save money, but not if you're deceived into thinking that it'll be easy to fulfill your requirements in 2 years and that it'll be easy to transfer all of your credits. You have to be proactive, and you can do it. I'm just trying to be the voice that helps you realize things sooner rather than later. Okay, I really hope this helps you. Please let me know if you have any other questions. I will link to my experience with transferring, because I'm sure a lot of you going to community college will eventually transfer, and there will be some advice in that video to help you through that process. Godspeed. I believe in you. You got this.